brilliant coloring of the Flame Dwarf Gourami is a real eye-catcher. It is a very popular variety of dwarf gourami. The Flame Dwarf Gourami is an extremely attractive color morph of the dwarf gourami Trichogaster lalius. It is one of the more solid colored varieties. The solid bright red on most of the body is contrasted by a brilliant blue dorsal fin. It notably lacks the vertical striping on the body and fins as found on its parentage. It was developed by breeders selectively pairing specimens for these desirable characteristics and strengthening them over several generations. This magnificent fish makes an outstanding show specimen for the aquarium. With its bold red and blue coloration, it is referred to by a variety of very descriptive common names. Originally it was called the red dwarf gourami or blushing gourami. It is now more commonly called flame dwarf gourami, red fire dwarf gourami, blood red dwarf gourami, and neon red dwarf gourami. Other than its coloration, however, this fish is the same in all respects as the regular dwarf gourami. It stays fairly small, with the males reaching only about 3 inches in length. The females are a bit smaller at around 2 1/3 inches. The dwarf gourami Trichogaster lalius was described by Hamilton in 1822. It was originally found in South Asia from Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. At one time it was believed to occur in Nepal and Myanmar as well, but that is now thought to be as a result of misidentification. However, it has now been widely distributed outside of its native range, with feral populations found in Singapore, the United States, and in Colombia. The flame dwarf gourami is a captive-bred color morph developed from the dwarf gourami. This variety was developed by breeders over several generations, by selectively pairing specimens for the desirable red and blue coloration with reduced vertical striping. In nature, the dwarf gouramis are found in slow-moving streams, rivulets, rice fields, irrigation channels, and other agricultural lands. They primarily occur in areas with thick vegetation. They are omnivorous and feed on small invertebrates, algae, and other aufwicks. Dwarf gouramis have a somewhat compressed, oval-shaped body, and the fins are rounded and relatively large. The ventral fins are thread-like and carry touch-sensitive cells that are extremely perceptive. They have a labyrinth organ, a part of the fish which allows it to absorb atmospheric oxygen directly into the bloodstream. They have an average lifespan of 4 years, but can live up to 7 years with proper care. Their coloring is quite a bit different from the dwarf gourami, most notably lacking the vertical striping on the body and fins. This color morph is easily distinguished by the solid bright red on most of the body, contrasted by a brilliant blue dorsal fin. However, it sometimes looks very similar to a red variety of honey gourami Trichogaster chunna. These two are often confused, so take care to make sure of which fish you are getting. This is a hardy fish and makes a good choice for the beginner. They are fairly undemanding as long as the tank is properly set up and maintained. They are readily accept all sorts of aquarium foods and are fairly easy to breed. They are prone to disease if the water quality is not kept up, so their tank does need regular maintenance. The location of the tank is important too. These fish get nervous and will get stressed if their tank is in areas that are loud, or where there's a lot of traffic around the tank. Flame dwarf gourami is an omnivore and will generally eat all kinds of live, fresh, and flake foods. To keep a good balance, give them a quality flake or pellet food as the base to the diet. Supplement this with live foods such as white worms, bloodworms, brine shrimp, or any other suitable substitute. Vegetable tablets can be offered as well. Generally feed once or twice a day. Dwarf gouramis are hardy fish. Although the labyrinth organ allows the fish to survive in oxygen-depleted water, it is a common misconception that this makes water changes unnecessary. This is hardly the case, as these fish will suffer the same tissue damage from built-up toxins as any other fish. Regular water changes are a must, with 25% weekly being recommended. The flame dwarf gourami will swim in all parts of the tank, but particularly likes the middle and top portions of the aquarium. These are small fish, and a single specimen could be kept in a smaller aquarium of at least 5 gallons. However, a 10-gallon tank is recommended as it will suit it much better. There's plenty of space for plants and the water will be more stable, and there will be room for some tankmates as well. It is desirable to keep the tank in a room with a temperature as close as possible to the tank water, or risk damaging the labyrinth organ. The tank should have an efficient filtration system but should not to create too much of a current. Air stones are also recommended for these fish as they prefer well-oxygenated waters. Dwarf gouramis will show their colors best on a dark substrate. They enjoy an aquarium that gets a good amount of light, but the tank should be decorated in a manner that provides plenty of hiding places for this shy fish to feel safe and secure. If the tank is too sparsely decorated they will become shy and withdrawn. These fish appreciate dense vegetation with some floating plants to give some cover. However, they will regularly breathe air at the surface, so it's important to have some areas unencumbered with plants. The tank needs to be located in a quiet area as these fish are easily scared by loud noises. Flame dwarf gouramis are a good community fish that can be kept with other peaceful fish. Large, active, or aggressive fish can easily intimidate them. They can be timid and may hide when first introduced to an aquarium. It may take some time for them to become comfortable and behave normally. Peaceful cyprinids such as the harlequin rasbora and many of the other rasboras make excellent tankmates. Some of the peaceful barbs also work well, but avoid those that are notorious fin nippers like tiger barbs and clown barbs. Smaller loaches like the coolie loach Pangeo coolie and its relatives, many of the tetras, smaller catfish like Corydoras species and Otocinclus, and smaller rainbowfish make great tankmates. Although often sold as pairs, the male may become belligerent to the female. Sometimes a pair can be kept together, but watch for male bullying of the female and provide plenty of hiding places. Two males, similar to bettas, will fight, especially in smaller aquariums. Unless the aquarium is very large and well planted, it's best not to keep a mix of gourami species together or to keep this fish with other anabantoids including bettas. These types of fish will bring out the aggressive side of this gourami. Avoid housing them with fin nippers and brightly colored species like guppies. The male is much more colorful and has a pointed dorsal pennant. They also generally have a smaller belly than the female. The female has much less color and her dorsal is rounded or curved. Pairs will generally swim together. Breeding the flame dwarf gourami is not too difficult, but the behavior of the males can be somewhat unpredictable. Sometimes during the courtship and after building the nest, a male may consider females to be rivals and bully them. So the plants are essential for the female to have places for retreat. Like most fish in this family, male dwarf gouramis are bubble nest builders. In an aquarium you will see a cluster of bubbles on the top of the water. Once the nest had been built, the male will begin a courtship display, usually in the afternoon or evening. He will flare up his dorsal fin and begin swimming around a female. The male ultimately embraces the female, turning her on her back. The female will release the eggs and the male will immediately fertilize them. The eggs are lighter than water and float to the top. The male will pick any knot in the nest in his mouth, and put them in his bubble nest. The eggs will hatch in about 12 to 36 hours and the fry will be free swimming in about 3 days. Flame dwarf gouramis are very hardy, so disease is not usually a problem in a well-maintained aquarium. Some diseases they are prone to are bacterial infections, constipation and hole in the head if good water quality, nutrition, and maintenance is not provided. With any additions to a tank such as new fish, plants, substrates, and decorations, there is a risk of introducing disease. It's advisable to properly clean or quarantine anything that you want to add to an established tank prior to introduction, so as not to upset the balance. These fish are very resilient, but knowing the signs of illness, and catching and treating them early makes a huge difference. An outbreak of disease can often be limited to just one or a few fishes if you deal with it at an early stage. The best way to proactively prevent disease is to give your fish the proper environment and a well-balanced diet. The closer to their natural habitat, the less stress the fish will have, making them healthier and happy. A stressed fish is more likely to acquire disease.